Good evening, and yet again, good evening, everyone. You already know who it is, but in case you forgot, I do not mind giving you a slight reminder. It's your best friend, your good Judy, your next door neighbor, your niece, your cousin, your nephew, and I've recently been promoted to great auntie. It is Norman J. Liverpool IV, and I am so happy that you have joined us for another edition of What's the LGBT, honey. And baby, let me tell you something, honey. I hope that you bring your teapots, your tea kettles, your teacups, your mugs, because the tea is hot. But really quick, we're going to have a quick little video by our sponsor, Juicy Beauty Bundles. Honey, we are so excited to partner with Lashes by Juicy Beauty Bundles. The owner, her name is Jade Unique, and she is the owner and stylist for Juicy Beauty Bundles. She is a hair extraordinaire. She also has a wonderful lash line, which features 2 different styles of mink lashes. And she's been able to use her expertise and precision, honey, to make things happen even during the pandemic. And so we are so grateful for Jade Unique from Juicy Beauty Bundles. And she actually has little sets for all of our special guests tonight. And so I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much, Juicy Beauty Bundles. So really quick, I want to talk to you guys. You know that I have my signature mentorship program that is called Evolve, and it is a 5-week program. The next cycle will start on September 14th. So I make 4 promises to you by working with me that you're going to unleash your unicorn power. You're going to stand out and shine. You're going to own your own story, and you're going to walk in next level confidence. But the thing is, you may say, Norman, I'm not wanting to work in a group 5-week setting. So I offer customizable monthly packages to work with you. You'll work with me one-on-one to find your voice, choose your impact, and share your story. I invite you to book an exploration call with me to see if working together is a good fit. So email me at norman@overthetopliving.com, or you can reach the Over the Top Living offices at 702-826-1299. Really quick before we get any further, I do just want to provide this brief disclaimer that the views and opinions expressed by the guests of the show of What's the LGBT are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of What's the LGBT or Norman J. Liverpool as a brand. The topic tonight may get sensitive, and is not necessarily intended for minors. So just make sure you're looking at who's watching us on tonight. So I want to talk about our LGBTQ artists, our spotlight for the week, which is Todd Kane. Todd Kane is an author. He is an activist. He is a coach to the LGBTQIA plus community and its allies. He is the author of the book Hide and Seek, There's No Truth in Fear. And what's really exciting is I have partnered with Todd to do a book club. So we're going to start tomorrow. So there's still time to join our book club. At the conclusion of this broadcast, I will post the link in the comments so that you can join us and join our exclusive group on Facebook. And Todd is actually participating in the discussion, so it's going to be really nice to get the author's perspective from this memoir. So I was doing a little bit of research today, honey, and let me tell you that the children are not playing with Netflix. So Netflix hates lesbians, or what people are saying, after the platform canceled 3 lesbian-led shows. I Am Not Okay with This, The Society, and Atypical. They all had prominent lesbian main characters and were canceled within the last 7 days due to circumstances created surrounding COVID. The decision has prompted rage and upset from fans of the shows and Netflix viewers in general, who simply cannot understand the cancellation when all 3 shows had an established viewership and good critical reception. In fact, one of the shows, which is Society, was already renewed for a second season, but the renewal was reversed by Netflix this week, and then the show was canceled. One of the questions raised by fans is how these shows could not survive when lowbrow movies and shows with pitiful critical reception, i.e., now this is from an article, Riverdale, The Kissing Booth, have continually been renewed year after year and far longer than any current shows with lesbian presence have lasted. The argument is being made over and over again on Twitter, with disgruntled fans upset that the lack of answers and the dubious COVID-19 circumstances as the reason for cancellation. One Twitter user even changed their display name to Netflix Hates Lesbians in response to the removal, and a fake Netflix account was created that said, okay, fine, we canceled I Am Not Okay with This because we hate dykes. Can you stop yelling now? That post alone garnered 54,000 likes. So I wanted to share with that. And Rosie, who is one of the commentaries, she references the quote, "You can't be what you can't see," she says. The problem with the lack of lesbian lead shows and lesbian representation, I think it's called compulsory heterosexuality, where heterosexuality is so presented as the norm that the lack of representation for gay people, but specifically lesbians, has a massive impact of her growing up and coming to terms with her sexual orientation. She thinks the process of coming out would have been a lot sooner and easier for her if she saw more lesbian representation. So I wanted to share that simply because when I was doing research today for today's show, I found it very difficult to find lesbian news. Lesbians happenings, like lesbian statistics, like I found it very difficult. So when I found that, I wanted to share that because I was really shocked that Netflix would cancel all 3 of those shows like that. But without further ado, we're 10 minutes in. When I rush, that means I'm so excited to get my guests on to the screen. So I want to take a moment to introduce my special guest. First, we have Sarah Liverpool, aka Chi-Town. She's a natural-born hustler turned businesswoman. She's no stranger to hard work, and she created Hungry Hustle Incorporated, where she connects business professionals from all genres and niches to create and design custom apparel and accessories. She is a dedicated African-American lesbian woman who is committed to helping those who look like her. She is also a cannabis connoisseur who is dedicated to removing the stigmas around cannabis consumption, starting with vets and the terminally ill. You can connect with her at Hungry Hustle Official on Facebook and Instagram. Now, honey, my next guest, honey, y'all know her. Listen, especially if y'all in Vegas, but if y'all just have access to Facebook, you already know my next guest. Jennifer Eason is a longtime organizer and community advocate who recently decided to take her loud, take no prisoner style and run for U.S. Congress. While she did not win her primary, she came in second. And I want to tell you how amazing that was, because she was coming up against someone who is established in this, someone who had the capital, the revenue to move this thing, and then COVID hit. So there was no such thing as campaigning. And so the fact that she came in second place to this person, I tip my hat up to her every single time. So look for her to run again in 2022 with her Tell It Like It Is analysis of all that is wrong with our elected leaders. She's a mom, a staunch supporter of the Black Lives Matter revolution, a cupcake master, and a happy wife. I am so excited also to bring on my next guest, Ms. Heidi Burgener. Heidi Burgener was born and raised in Las Vegas. She also spent some time in her 20s and 30s in LA, where she realized after years of suppressing it that she was what? A lesbian. When she returned to Vegas, she was not impressed with the LGBTQ pride and events here, so she volunteered for many of the organizations and eventually and fought for rights for everyone. She started working at what was Closet Sunday, which eventually turned into Revolution Sundays, which maintaining an 8-year run on the Las Vegas Strip at the Mirage. She decided to join the Las Vegas Pride Board, and she served as a director, and then she went on to serve as an associate director, helping in events. Heidi, along with Jennifer Eason and Adam Juicy, got upset about the Orlando shooting and decided to take it to the Strip, whether the city liked it or not. The walk became the biggest demonstration Las Vegas has seen on the Las Vegas Strip to date, with over 6,000 attendees. And let me tell you, Heidi, I was there, baby, and it was insane. Heidi had her loudspeaker and her colorful, I don't even know what you call it, so we could see her in the street. It was amazing to see Heidi and Jen work together on that. She put all her effort into a good fight for rights for everyone, saying that everyone deserves human rights. She's also been in the hospitality industry for over 30 years and worked her way from dishwasher to general manager. She loves to spend time with her fur babies, family, and her friends, which I'm so proud to be able to call myself one of. So without further ado, please welcome my guests, Chi-Town, Jennifer Eason, and Heidi Burgener.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
ladies. Hi, oh, wait, hold on. Jen is muted. Let me unmute her. Oh, Jen, you have to unmute yourself. There we go.
I have to be smarter than the camera, and today is not my day.
Oh, no. Yes. Well, honey, so really quick, I want you guys to just take a brief moment and introduce yourself in your own words. And I'd like to invite you to answer the question, why is this episode, why is what we're doing tonight so important? And I'll start with you, Jen.
Today is important to me to be able to take part in this discussion because, as you alluded to earlier, representation is so important. Without seeing a reflection of yourself in the media, you start to question whether or not even your own existence is valid. And I think that probably resonates with anybody in the LGBT community. And so many of the podcasts and shows and publications and things that we tend to see, or the things that are put forward more than anything else, are usually geared towards a very specific demographic within the LGBT umbrella. So anytime that I'm able to take part in something that is outside of what we normally see, which is the boys, let's be honest about it, it's a certain look type of boy, count me in, right? I want to make sure that all of the letters under the rainbow have equal representation.
I love that. And thank you so much for being here. And again, I just want to congratulate you on your congressional run. And coming in second place was huge. And I'm excited to see you take victory in 2022.
I'm excited to see me do the same thing.
Yes, yes. All right, Chi-Town, what you got for us?
Well, I think it's very important to discuss, the things that we're going to discuss, because you don't hear much about lesbians, the community. There's already so many preconceived notions of what, lesbians are, who lesbians are, how we live. So I think it's very important, especially for the younger generation coming up, that they know and see people who look like them, who live like them, who feel like them, knowing how we feel. And oh, I see Mom's on. Hey, Mom.
Hey.
So yeah, I think it's just very important just to shed light on it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. For those of you that don't know, my sister Chi-Town, if you can't tell by the shirt she's wearing, is the owner of Hungry Hustle. I'm wearing Hungry Hustle tonight. She does all of the marketing stuff for Over the Top. So my t-shirts, pens, fanny packs, backpacks, hit her up if you need that. So thank you again for being here tonight, Chi-Town.
Always.
All right, Miss Heidi, girl.
Well, I'm here tonight. I think they summed up a lot of it. Like, to hear that you can't even look in, on Google and find many articles about lesbian just kind of shows what happens within our own communities within each city. Because, I mean, they're not highlighted in any events, any social events, or any sort of political events in that matter. So I'm happy to raise some good questions here and find out some information from the other two co-hosts and their opinions on some of our issues, trials, and tribulations, and just excited to be here in general.
Well, thank you. I just, I have to say that it was such a pleasure being able to meet you. We've known of each other for so many years, and being able to connect with you and seeing the march that you and Jen and Adam put together. It was literally like something out of, like it literally blew my mind. Like,
it was so mind blowing.
When we went down there, let me unmute Jen. When we went down there and to see the amount of people, and I remember going up the escalator by Bally's
and turning around. We didn't even anticipate having that many people, Heidi, right? I mean, once we started, and it was a last minute decision to suggest that everyone wear white in solidarity, which I think that was Heidi's idea, by the way, brilliant. And we turned around and it was just this sea of people in white. And it wasn't just our community. It was allies and the media and really anybody that was touched by that experience or touched by that incident came down. Even the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, who didn't have to help us, came of their own accord. They didn't charge us. They told us, we're so glad you're here. Let us know what we can do to help. Heidi, and I'm sure I speak for you, but it was, for me, a very transformative event. It felt like, for once, the entire community came together for one purpose, and it was meaningful.
And what's really interesting about the fact that you and Heidi spearheaded this, and so we're going to jump right in, is when I think of the gay and lesbian movement, when I think of people that were like involved in the very beginning, and we're talking about even dealing with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, I always think of the lesbian community that was there supporting the gay community. Even on the show Pose, which is phenomenally written, you see that theme of the lesbians making the noise, the lesbians saying, hey, this isn't right. Hey, people are dying. So I guess let's kick the conversation off. Do you feel that there is a disconnect between the L's and the G's?
Oh, yeah.
There is.
I think there's a significant disconnect.
I mean, just like Jen, I think it's fair to say that I have more friends, though, actually, that are gay men than actual lesbians. So, I mean, I don't know where the disconnect is in a whole, as far as both. Random people, I guess. I don't know. But as a whole, yes, there's a big disconnect.
I think it's better now than it used to be.
So talk to us. What is your experience? Like, how do you were the first one to say, yeah. So where do you think that disconnect stems from?
Honestly, I mean, I don't really know. I think I agree with Heidi. Like, I have a lot of gay male friends, mainly because you are a gay male, but they were more welcoming than most of the lesbians that I did meet when I moved here, and that I've known previous. But I think for some reason we just don't come together like we should between the lesbians and the gay men. Like there's nothing bridging that gap like it should, and it's unfortunate because I think it would be dynamic. We would be unstoppable as a group if we were able to come together.
Now, Jen, you commented that it's better than what it was. What does that look like for the people who may not know, for the young people who may be like, oh, well, this is what I'm coming up in.
You're trying to say I'm old? No, I'm
no, no, girl, I'm right there with you. But what I'm saying is, like, just to describe that, what was it like for you as a lesbian versus how you see things today?
I think if you look at history, when the LGBT fight for equality really started to gain steam and really started to move into the forefront, it was between the Stonewall riots, obviously, and Harvey Milk and the work that he did in San Francisco was really when our fight for equality started to make national news and come to the forefront. And I think back then, the gay men, for whatever reason, and I'm not a gay man, so I can't really kind of, speculate on what their reasoning was, really tried to take the movement and push it forward without the assistance of the trans community, without the assistance of the lesbian community. And I think for whatever reason, again, we just really felt pushed out of the whole movement. And so when you have to work so hard, oftentimes, to break barriers, your soul gets tired. And so you just sort of kind of give up. But I think over the course of the past maybe 20 years, we have started to feel more comfortable with who we are. And then when you start to feel more comfortable with who you are, you start to be more out and proud. And once you start to do that, you start to look at your neighbors and go, well, we're fighting for the same thing at the end of the day. And I think people were starting to realize that there actually was power in numbers because we were all fighting for the same thing. The right to be able to love who we want and have it legalized. The right to be able to come to work and put pictures of our families and our spouses up at our desks and not be worried about losing our jobs for doing that. And I think once we started to realize that, we started to meld together. And I only see that getting better as we move forward. Now, of course, we all have the right to marry legally, but given the current administration and what we face moving forward, those rights are really in jeopardy. So as a community, we really have to stick together and keep this gel that we have moving forward as we kind of determine how we're going to make our path in whatever the world is turning into.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, Heidi, you had touched upon something, and I wanna as to kind of explore it a little bit. I want to talk about lesbian visibility, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, like I do research on every single episode because I like to bring very pertinent information, and I just found it very challenging to find the amount or the caliber of information that I find on my other shows. I'm able to pull up statistics on gay people, on trans people, on bisexual people, on intersex people, on questioning people. But when I was trying to find some statistics and some information to bring forth about the lesbian community, I found it very challenging. So what I would like to discuss is lesbian visibility, even as it relates to like social justice issues, nightlife. Why is it like the way that it is? And I'll start with Heidi because I know you have the background in the hospitality industry, and this was actually one of the topics that you brought up. So can you get us kicked off with that?
Well, I think that it's more about lesbians getting involved too, because like I know I've done HRC, I've been to Pride, but I also know there is people fed up with certain organizations. So I'm not going to sit here and say that people don't have issues, but there's also a sense of people getting involved, and it seems that the lesbians don't. Whether it be a personal issue or they just don't want to. As far as nightlife goes, like I've been in that for a minute, and I beat my head against the wall trying to do girls events, and I take my hat off to Contiana because she gets that successful all the time. With the guys, forget about it. I had it on lock. It was easy. The girls, I don't know. At first, I was like, well, they just want to hook up and then not show up for 3 months because they're at home watching Netflix. Who's going to cancel their shows in a year? But whatever. But then I got to thinking too. Like I was talking with a friend the other night about this subject, and she was like, well, do you think that maybe it's a possibility that women actually don't make as much money as men, whether it be gay or straight? And, you know, there's those few, like Jen, she rolled up, bought her bottles. You know, there's certain girls that I knew had, you know, much, you know, I guess higher paying jobs. But I just wonder how many of the percentage, now that I want to look at it, now that my friend put it in my face, you know, how are women suppressed? And I'm just looking at the lesbian world and not just the world as women in a whole. You know, that we don't make as much. There's a lot of women that won't make as much as men in a percentage in this world.
That's a very interesting concept. Now, my sister, she knows that some of you, well, by now, all of y'all should know that I used to do drag, and my sister used to come, and like when she moved here, that was her job, was to carry my suitcase, collect my tips, redeem my drink coupons and that kind
Bobby
of thing.
pins.
Right, all of that, right. So for you coming in, now you moved here at 21, and coming into this scene, like how was that for you as like a young person, like looking for that, excited to finally be, you know, away from home, starting your own life? Like how was that for you moving here? And then you're looking around like, what?
Now don't get me wrong. I mean, it's exciting. Vegas, in and of itself is exciting, and I loved going to the drag shows, and I mean, all the bars and clubs we used to go to. But what I couldn't get a grasp on is why there was no place for the ladies, or just even a night that was like, you know, popping like the drag show nights would be, packed like the drag show nights would be. So I mean, you would end up going to, you know, whatever club was popping that night, and there might be a few scattered lesbians in the crowd, but it was never like, it was, even when you would go to the lesbian events, it was either empty or fighting. So I wish it could have been more of that, but I definitely enjoyed my experiences with all the people that you brought into my life, all the drag queens that I've met along the way, all the gay boys. Like it, you guys welcomed me with open arms. So I don't know. It was a wonderful experience. I just wish I could have had more of an experience geared towards me in my lifestyle.
Now, Jen, you've been a longtime resident of Las Vegas. And so I'm sure, I mean, I've been here 13 years. How many years have you been here?
I've been here since 2005.
Okay. So, yeah, so you were here even before me. So what was that like in terms of nightlife? And I mean, I know you to be a huge supporter of the gay community. And when I say gay, I mean specifically like the gay community. You're always out supporting the drag queens. You're out at the, you know, when the bars were open, you were out, you know, at the bar, spending money, tipping the people. Like you were out there. But what did that feel like to be like, well, where is my place?
You know, that thought really only crossed my mind a couple of times because I really, you know, back in the crave days and the share days, I was having so much fun that I didn't feel like it was missing anything. It always felt very inclusive to me. And the men in this community have always welcomed me with open arms, like Chi-Town said, and have always made me feel welcome. But going back to kind of what Heidi said a little bit earlier, I think part of the problem in Las Vegas is that this is a much smaller town than people think. That's part of the problem. We do have a tendency to U-Haul it and stay home. That's part of it as well. I also think that we're missing fresh ideas in nightlife. You can only recycle the same L word or real L word characters so many times at so many events. You can only play my neck, my back so many times at the same event. Before I would much rather stay home and get drunk because it's cheaper and I like my wife.
Okay. All right. I love that. Now, one of the things, Shai, you mentioned, oh, wait, we have a comment. Oh, wait. All right. Dr. Gina Franklin Liverpool says historically, women have been ignored, experienced biases, whether lesbian or heterosexual. Yes, women support others more in the home, workplace, and. Okay. All
I
right. So
hear that.
it's
But
true.
the owners of the clubs also never want to give us a weekend night, right? Like you can have this
Ever.
Tuesday night or you can have this Thursday night. That doesn't always necessarily work for people. There's people that are in school, they work a regular schedule. Like I can't be out all, wasted on a Wednesday night. Give me a Saturday night. And the perfect storm just kind of never really came together, I guess.
Yeah. And one of the things, Shai, you touched on.
Because Phoenix does do it on the weekends for the girls.
Yeah, but it wasn't that way back in the day, Heidi.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to what you were saying, Jen, about like a little bit of the progression that we've had. But Shai, you mentioned something that like in the events, like either I think it was you or like people wouldn't show up, or there would be fighting and
Yeah.
that. And so one of the interesting topics that not only you ladies kind of put into what we were going to talk about tonight, but some of the feedback that I've been getting from some of the viewers is surrounding the violence in the lesbian community, and particularly gender roles and domestic violence. And I would love for you ladies to kind of expound upon that, because as a gay man, like I see like fighting and altercations and things, but for me as an outsider looking in, it seems like a completely different type of situation with women. And so I have witnessed some things and I'm like, wow, like as a man, I couldn't imagine being treated that way, whether that be from police officers or from your partner. So let's kind of transition into that for a minute. Like, how do you feel that this issue surrounding domestic violence impacts the lesbian community?
I don't know if it's just there's more or if it's just showcased more or if it's just more in the spotlight. I know that me personally, I've heard the saying from other lesbians, at the end of the day, we're both females, right? And so in that instance, like when it comes to being in a relationship with the same sex, you think, oh, there's really, it's not as bad, but that is not the reality. The reality is if you're dating someone and you love someone, you shouldn't be putting your hands on them, period. But a lot of times it comes down to, well, we're both females. If you put your hands on me, I'll put my hands on you. But it definitely shouldn't be that way. And I think that we should definitely break away from that stigma. And, even especially when there's gender roles or like a dominant role in the relationship, like I feel like that's definitely hands down a no-no.
Jen, what do you have to say about that?
I can speak as a survivor of domestic violence in a lesbian relationship. I was in a long-term relationship where I was on the receiving end of domestic violence. And it's always easy to say what you would or you wouldn't do, until you actually get into that situation. When I found myself in that situation, I had started a job where I was traveling quite a bit. And as you know, I have a couple of kids and, traveling to the degree that I needed someone to stay home. And so I felt like I'd been put in the position to either make a choice to take a job where I was not making as much money and I was not going to be able to provide the life that I wanted to for my kids. I mean, it was just, what do you do? I stayed in a relationship a lot longer than I should have, but, we as women, I think because we have a tendency to maybe be more secretive about it because it's more taboo, because not only are we lesbian, so we've got sort of that tick mark against us from a societal perspective, but now we're also dealing with domestic violence. So that adds an additional layer of complexity to, what it is we're trying to put out into the universe and what people are seeing. So, I think it's probably just as prevalent, if not more so, than in heteronormative relationships. We maybe just do a better job of hiding it.
Wow, that's actually a really, really good point. Heidi, what do you have to add about this topic of domestic violence in the lesbian community?
Well, I personally have not been through it. I've had friends that have. My problem is when there's domestic violence, like, yes, it's two females, but there's rage, there's jealousy, there's insecurities, there's things behind it that a straight couple would have. And police will show up at their house. There was a story a few years ago that a friend of mine was telling me her friend was stabbed and the cops had been out 6 times, but just chalked it up as, oh, you two, go to bed and, go to sleep, where a man or whoever created it would have been arrested. And she was not only, physically, but emotionally suppressed. And she ended up getting stabbed by her girlfriend on a Saturday morning. And the police showed up. And it was funny because it was a police officer it wasn't funny. Well, actually, it's disgusting. But a police officer actually had to go there and deal with it that had been there previously to see what was going on. So,
Wow.
I mean, just because it's two ladies doesn't mean that there's not something behind there, like that show called Snap. There's emotions, there's rage, there's the jealousy or whatever's created the fight. And there's still the issue of whatever it would be, a man versus a woman or a man versus man. It doesn't matter. There's something behind it that's driven by emotions. And that's worse than just two girls getting in a fight at the bar.
Right.
There's a little more to look at there. They don't,
Right.
They don't.
And so what's interesting about that, well, I guess we're just going to go there. So how do you ladies feel that race may play a part in this? Because one of the things that have come up even within our group, and again, feedback from outside, is about the treatment of Black women within the lesbian community. Shy, I'm gonna start with you. But how, do you feel that race plays a part in this? And as we're talking about the treatment of Black women within the lesbian community?
Definitely. I think, unfortunately, race plays a part in a lot. So, imagine being, as you call it, a double minority. You're Black and you're lesbian. So that's 2 strikes already against you.
And you're masculine identified.
Yeah. Now that is also a hard part.
And you're a woman just in general, so there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna let my wife sit here for a second during this topic, if you're okay with that, as a Black masculine identified woman. So
Please.
Here we go. We don't need you involved.
Let's shut down finish.
But yeah, so I mean, I think it plays a big role. I think that there's a level of discrimination, especially for the masculine Black females. And I hate to say it, but a lot of it comes from other Black heterosexual women. And that is also unfortunate, but I think there's just the stereotype behind it, and everyone in society expects you to uphold that, and it's not necessarily the case.
Well, welcome, Lex.
Thank you.
Hi, Lex.
So what do you have to say about this in relationship to the treatment of Black women, and if race has a part to play in that within the lesbian community?
I think race definitely is a major factor, because I even know just basically in everything in life, just being, like you said, like the double, and I hate to say that, like double minority, whatever. I don't think I'm saying that, but even with like jobs, going out and just how we're treated, other men thinking that we're trying to be men, how the masculine and even though we're masculine, we're not trans. If you are like a stud or whatever, that line always gets blurred, and so it's definitely race and all those factors. I think like black studs really have a rough in like a lot of those aspects, because now that I've gotten older, I don't go through a lot of things that I used to go through, because I know how to handle a lot of situations now. So the violence and all that was pretty much for like the youngest. I see it's more of the young lesbians. The older ones kind of on a different tip now. So it doesn't really you know, it doesn't really weigh out the same. But I feel bad sometimes looking at how the young studs and the young masculine identified females, how they really are out there representing. Because sometimes I don't like what I see most of the time.
Wow. Now, Heidi, being that you have been in nightlife for so long, and I mean, you've been here, you've been to the events, you've been on the boards, you've done all that. What is your take on the treatment of Black people or Black women within the lesbian community?
Okay, I
And thank you,
actually
Lex.
did an event without naming venues because I don't do that. With the women, and when the butch girls showed up, and I will say in particular within the African American community, they were searched. Anybody that was feminine with a butch woman was asked to open their purse. But any like normal like feminine girl walking in was not searched, was not scanned with metal detectors. So I mean, I really got upset about it. And to be honest, like a lot of girls left, and I did not blame them at all. I left myself. I shut the event down and told them, you know what, I'm pulling the plug, and we pulled the plug on the music, and I walked right out of there, and I met up with as many girls as I could somewhere else because that was bullshit. Excuse my language on this show.
No, honey,
Just,
baby.
had they metal detected everybody, had they asked every femme that walked through that door to look through their purse, I get it. That's what happens at a lot of events and stuff, but it wasn't. It was directed mainly at the butch, and I will say more towards the African American. I think Jen was actually a victim of one of those, that incident there. And I'm not going to name the venue because I don't do that, but I think Jen will remember.
Yeah.
And it really made me mad.
It got physical.
On the whole night.
That incident got physical, the one you were referring to.
So, there's just so many things that let me just say this. I'm so grateful that I'm able to sit down with the three of you because even having a lesbian sister, there's so much that I don't know because it's not part of my experience or I don't see it. I mean, I'm in my 30s, my sister's, an adult. And so I don't, and so we don't live in the same home. And so I don't get to see a lot of that. But how does that affect you when you want to go out? Like knowing, like, I would think like for me, because there's a venue in town, baby, that used to get popping on Wednesdays. And for me, it was just a little much for me. And so I didn't want to go. So how does that affect, going back to what we were talking about, the lesbian visibility, wanting to go to the events and everything, do you think that has anything to do with why there's a lack of visibility or why there's a lack of like participation in the lesbian events, Jen?
Yes. Most of the venues, I'm choosing my words carefully here, some more than others, are blatantly rude to their female patrons. There is a bar specifically that I will not name that if you were to go in and attempt to order a drink, and you would be sitting there waiting forever because the bartenders would continue to call on every other male that's at the bar ready to order. And last time I checked, my money spends just as good as anybody else's. So I don't go. And some of my favorite drag queens that I consider family perform there. I love you. I'll cash app you what I would tip you, but I'm not spending a dime in there.
I like to go to straight.
But you want
to like women are labeled immediately cheap. They're labeled that, and they don't know who's walking in there. They don't know. Like, I could just go in there looking like a bomb. Well, they know I spend money, but like anybody could, and you don't know who the hell it's going to be. And you don't know what money they have. But they label them, so they ignore them because they don't think they're going to get a bigger tip off of them. And they think they're going to be cheap in their ordering.
Like, I want to wear my underwear at underwear night too, but as it turns out, I cannot.
Yeah, no, you don't. I don't either.
Well, so, wow. Okay. I'm choosing my words carefully too. So this brings us to another point. because I'll put it to you like this. With everything that's going on in society right now, I'm very aware and I'm very intentional about where I spend my money, who, like who I patronize. Like I will spend the extra time to do the work to make sure that where I'm spending my money, that the people that run that, the owners, that they align with the fact that I should be alive. I mean, number one, um, the fact that my life matters, that you know what I'm saying. So as a lesbian in this, and Jen, you brought up a very good point, as specifically about that. Does that alter the? Because to me, and I'm speaking scattered because I have so many different ideas going on, but it's almost like connecting the dots. It's like, well, we get treated this way when we go out, but then there's someone that wants to like try something, but then there's like this violence there, so I don't want to go, so I stay at home. Like, do you see where I'm going? Does it feel like kind of all of it kind of contributes to the other? Shy, what do you think?
Oh, definitely. Sometimes it's not even worth the hassle of going.
Yes.
By the time I finally get a drink, I could already be tipsy at home.
I could have gone out to my car for the vodka that's out there 3 times already.
And a few times you have to. And Norman, for a fact, I'll say, can you get me a drink when we're at certain places? And you will have to get me a drink.
Yeah. I remember there was one time that it was me, you, another lesbian, and I had to place the entire order.
Yeah.
And as Jen said, I won't name any names.
Yeah.
But it was the place I used to kick it at. And,
it's like, why get up, get dressed, spend money and gas going, trying to find parking, okay, to go in and be treated like your money's no good there. The liquor store doesn't treat me like that. I can go into the liquor store right now. They're going to greet me. They're going to serve me exactly what I want when I want it. And I can come home and I can drink it at my leisure. So why waste a whole outfit?
Might have 2 samples in there that night too.
Well,
at the liquor store.
Okay. Make it worth your while. But instead you go out and you're ignored. It's like, well, I don't want to spend my money with anyone. And unfortunately, we don't have places to go. I was asked at work by a lesbian who just moved here, like, what's the lesbian scene like? And I'm like, really, what lesbian scene? Hopefully you find some more lesbians that you're cool enough with where you can at least get together, have dinner, game night, drinks or something. Because other than that, there's nowhere to go. If you tell me right now where to go, pre-pandemic, I would have been there.
Now it's really desolate. Forget about it.
I have an email that is directed towards Lex and Shy. Hold on.
Perfect time for this.
Yes, cheers. So the question is, do studs, and first of all, let's clarify, is stud the appropriate word to use for a masculine identified lesbian? Let's start there.
Yeah, stud is what I would identify as. I don't use the term like butch or anything, but stud is what, I've always been called and what I don't mind.
The term stud is more like the urban, in like the urban areas.
Like a slang.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like butch, if I think about a butch, I think about like,
Ellen.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like an Ellen type stud or, maybe a dyke on a bike, something like that, But, stud is the correct term.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, do studs want to be men?
No.
Not at all.
Because in that case, I would definitely be trans. I would make a transition immediately if I really felt like I was going to be a man.
There's nothing in me that is like, oh, I want to be a man. And I think part of that is you have to be in touch with your femininity. Like, I don't deny the fact that I'm a woman. My body reminds me once a month that I'm a woman. No matter what I try to.
Your body reminds me once a month. You're a whole girl.
Listen, no matter how I act or what I dress, what underwear is under my clothes, once a month I'm going to know I'm a woman. I enjoy being a woman and all the perks that come with that. And I think that's like the fun part of, actually being a lesbian as opposed to being, you know, a trans male.
That's right.
So Lex, how has that been for you? Because I know for me, even as a gay boy, and again, my sister's a lesbian, I struggled with and it's almost embarrassing to say, because as a gay man, I understand the difference between a gay male and a trans person.
Right.
But even me being, you know, I'm definitely effeminate. I know that about myself, but I think as a gay person, like to me, I was always just like, when I looked at studs, I was like, they want to be a dude. You know, like I looked at my aunt, who, God rest her soul, she was a stud. And I looked at the way that she moved through space, is what I'll say.
Yes.
And it was very masculine to me.
Well, you just said the key word. The key word is masculinity. And see, we have to understand that masculinity and femininity has nothing to do with sex. You know, so if I'm just masculine identified, but that's it. It's just because that's more of what I am out of 100% of what I am. That's probably like about a good 80, 85 or something, you know? But it's just more of the identification of being masculine and not trying to be a man. And I think it's the same with men. Some men, it's gay guys out there that I would never know, like off the bat, like unless they told me, you know, because they're very masculine and they didn't really show their feminine side like that, you know. So it goes both ways. But that is just like something that is like such a stigma. I really hate being told that, like, oh, you're just trying to be a man or whatever. It's like, no, like, you know, why would I try to be a man when I'm this beautiful woman and I represent so much, you know what I'm saying? And then like, you know, like everything for me is just like as far as like people seeing me, like it's a little stud out there that I encourage to, you know, they felt more open to become a lesbian in like high school when I couldn't even do nothing like that, like, you know, back in the 90s. So it's like this representation. I feel like I have to represent, you know, a certain way of how you really should be, you know. And it's just messed up because I constantly tell people that, like, I'm never trying to be no man. I would be a trans if it was
right.
You know, but I celebrate the piece of femininity that I do have. I celebrate it.
Right. Yeah. And it's very interesting that, Shai, you mentioned the being in touch with your femininity, because for me, as I journey towards an age that's no longer in the 30s, I find that I am in touch with another side of masculinity that I never even knew was there.
Wow.
And so what's really interesting about you and Lex is you guys have really challenged my thought process, because I wonder how many other gay men feel like it's so easy to understand the difference between like what they consider straight acting and a femme male versus a feminine lesbian or a masculine lesbian. And I think that conversations like this are what we need to just build understanding, because it's literally the same thing. And it wasn't until just now when you spoke it out loud for me to hear, I'm like, well, that is the same shit.
Well, you have to look at it like we're comfortable with who we are. We're in touch with who we are. Okay. And there's a difference between a masculine lesbian and a trans male. Yes. There's it's completely two different things. So I think that they're both great. You know, I celebrate them both. I think trans people in general are strong, courageous. But it's never been a time where I was like having those thoughts or those feelings. I knew that I was a lesbian woman who just happened to be more dominant than most feminine women.
Got it. So Heidi,
you gotta catch her while you can.
Sorry, my cat is driving me nuts right now.
No. So my question for you is, how do you see that? Like in terms of between the stud, and the feminine lesbian, like I don't know if you identify.
Okay, so Heidi's a chapstick. Heidi's a chapstick.
Yeah, for me, like everybody views me like I'm femme, but if you get around me, and you really get to know my personality, I am more of a stud or butch, whatever. I wouldn't go to the length of saying a full-on stud, but I'm very I have a lot of masculine ways. Like, I love to build things. I love to do things. Like, I'm in the same way. Like, you could find me out in dressed up, or you could find me out in some baggy ass jeans with a tank top and a ball cap on, looking more stud than Chi-Town can on a normal day. Like, so it's really just a label, because they're looking at me and seeing what they think they see, but they're not seeing who I am.
Well,
You know,
that's
just
interesting.
as well as I'm probably
I love that.
less emotional than Chi-Town is. That's the thing, and people don't realize that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not emotional. Trust me, I get emotional, but like,
I
there's
don't
a lot
know.
of studs out there that are very emotional, and everybody probably thinks I'm just like this little fam girl that's gonna break down and cry. No.
But you know what's so interesting? And so I'm happy Lex is here. I have a comment that I want to put on the screen. And Scotty says, my aunt says she's just herself. She's very masculine physically, but she has a softer personality. She is okay with sir or ma'am, Mr. or Miss. As a stud, does this bother you? Now, this is actually quite interesting when we're talking about pronouns, identity, and things of that. So does that, I'm going to put this back up here. So he asks, she is okay with sir or ma'am, Mr. or Miss. As a stud, does that bother you? Let's start with Lex, our extra special guest. Does that bother you?
Nah, actually, to keep it real with you, it doesn't really bother me because I mean, it happens all the time. You know, I used to get bothered when I was younger, but as I got older, people just see what they see. You know, but sometimes to keep it real, like when I'm in a rush, I don't even have time to correct people. The only time I correct people was a customer service dealing with my money. If I'm calling, because I know my voice is a little bit deeper, and they be like, "Yes, sir," and I'm like, "No, ma'am, this is Mrs. Eason." You know, so that's the only time I really, you know, when it's coming to my business. But as far as everything else, I don't have time to go around just correct everybody because I want to just put it in their face like that, you know. But you correct it when it's needed.
Okay. All right. And Lewis says that's a good question. So Chi-Town, what's your take on that? Like, how do you feel about it?
It doesn't bother me either way, unless someone's trying to be funny.
That part.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, if they try to be funny, then I have no problem letting them know. Okay, but it doesn't bother me. I get mistaken for sir, Mr. all the time. The only other time it really truly bothers me is when I want to use the bathroom, a public restroom.
Oh my God, yes.
And the looks you get when you walk into a woman's restroom as a stud is crazy. Like, you feel uncomfortable. You want to get in, you want to get out. Like, like you don't want nobody to see you. You just want to dip in, dip out. Like, honestly, and it's that's the only time where I'm just like, you know.
She goes in and purposely messes with people.
I like it now. I'll be like, all right, come on. Especially if I see the eyes and I have really, really good vision. My vision is very wide. I play basketball. I got the ball in the court. So I'm like, yeah, so I can see it already happening before I walk in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Like, girl, come on if you want to. Come on. Say something. And please
either way, I'm a pee.
Because then I'm really gonna say something. So I'll wait for it now.
Right.
So I want to shift us a little bit to one of the things we talked about on one of my previous episodes with the guys. And we talked about like self-esteem, body image, body positivity, all of that. And so I know as a gay man what I go through. Well, one, because I'm Black and gay. So I'm definitely not that ideal that, you know, we were talking about earlier. But as a lesbian woman, and we'll start with Heidi, how has being a lesbian affected your self-esteem and your body image? I'm curious to know what that is like in your shoes.
Actually, I think once I realized it, because like, I don't know, Vegas is such a small place already. So imagine when you're growing up here, it was very small, and I think it was very more racist, and a lot of things were suppressed here. You know, growing up in an LDS family, that wasn't easy to say, oh, okay, and allow myself to be okay with it. So actually, I grew up weighing 215 pounds. And when I moved to LA and I came out, I instantly lost my weight and I kept my weight off. I can't say how my weight was lost by natural causes, but you know what? Hey, I've been clean for 20 years now plus, but I've kept it off. So I think by being suppressed by being a lesbian growing up my whole life, because now I can go back and remember, oh, that's why I was so sad when that one girl left. Like, you know, you could like go back and relate. So I think it suppressed me. So I think I ate myself to like this obese. Like at 18, I weighed in at 219, and I left here at that age, and within a year, I was down to less than what I should be because of the unnatural things that I was doing. But I was down, and I've never weighed anything over than an average weight since. Well, maybe a pound or two here and there. You know, so I think by being depressed and not being able to come out fully, like I used to tell my family and just people who would bring up lesbians or gays, oh, that carpet muncher, and just be like totally the most about it. And then when it hit me, I was like, wow, okay. So I think that if you can't come out of the closet or you can't be out and who you are, your body's naturally going to you're going to put it somewhere, right? So I chose my body. So now my image is I did become anorexic at points and bulimic if I started gaining weight. So like, did I ruin myself as a child? No, I just have to now hear my family or myself say, Heidi, eat today. Heidi, eat today. Because I got so used not to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. What about you, Jen?
So two things. Heidi's one of my closest friends, and I love her. So I just want to tell you how proud of you I am for your sobriety for so long, and I am so proud of you, and I love you. Okay. So second thing, and this is a really funny story. So most everybody that knows me knows that I have two kids. Clearly, I have not identified as a lesbian my entire life. I identified as bisexual for the longest time because I came from a very strict Irish Catholic family where being gay was unacceptable. So, you know, I hid who I was and did all the other things until I finally became comfortable with who I am. So when I finally embraced who I was, and this was maybe 10, 11 years ago or so, I was like, you know what? I'm a full-on lesbian. I'm going to go to Dinah Shore for the first time. So those of you that don't know what Dinah Shore is, it's the equivalent of the white party or whatever in Palm Springs. It's usually the weekend or 2 weekends before the white party. It's a debaucherous weekend full of lesbianism. And I was like, and I was big. Like I'm chunkier now because I gained 40 pounds, but I had weight loss surgery and lost 80. So at my heaviest, I was like 267. So my first Dinah that I went to, I was like 260. I was like, women are so accepting and they love each other and they're going to accept you what your body is. And I'm going to go to this lesbian event. I'm going to get so much ass. I didn't get hit on one time. Not one time. Because as it turns out, the LGBT community has expectations of physical appearance, and those expectations tend to err on the side of perfection. And so if you don't fit into whatever the specific box is that the LGBT community has decided is acceptable and pretty, then you're off into a different tangent group where you're allowed to mingle within that, right? So bears typically mingle within bears because that's acceptable. That's the way it was. And it was a total shock for me because I was under the impression that women were going to embrace other women. Not the case.
Wow.
Not the case. Rude awakening.
And so I just want to point this out. Colleen says some Vegas women are shallow. I never had a weight complex until I moved to Vegas. Wow. Now, Shai, what do you have to say about that? How has body image or your self-esteem, how has that played a role with you?
When I was younger, it played a large role. And how I felt about myself, how I wanted to be viewed by others. I'm probably the heaviest I've been now, but I'm also probably the most comfortable I've been in my body in a long time. So I kind of I've always never wanted to just be the norm and do the norm. But there's been times where I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, oh, you know, I wish I had like this amazing body. I could be taking, you know, all these selfies and not have to worry about angles and double chins and, you know, stuff like that. But then I kind of just started to love myself, how I am. And I figured as long as I'm healthy, Like I'm healthy as an ox, no matter what I weigh. So I'm like, as long as I'm healthy, I don't have any blood pressure issues, no sugar issues. Then I'm just gonna love me for me, and either you're gonna like it or love it. Like my girlfriend, when she met me, I was probably like 150 pounds, and I'm over 200 right now. So either you're gonna like it or you're not, and that's fine. And as long as I'm comfortable, then I'm okay with it.
She
And
likes
so,
it.
loves
Clearly,
it. So
she
there
likes
you
it.
go.
Honey, Dr. Gina Franklin says we should all try to be healthy, not focus on weight so much as health. And I find that to be so true. So if you're watching this, make sure you go back to my YouTube channel and watch my episode on body positivity. So, oh wait, we got another one. Color and weight are the biggest reasons people have ruled me out here. Vegas is too shallow. I feel you on that, but that's okay. We're fine. Their loss.
exactly.
Yes,
That's right.
Exactly.
that's right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much for that, Scott. So I just want to let everyone know all of the episodes that we've been doing from the last week of July through this week, we're going to be doing part 2 of in October. And so just because I feel like some of the topics that we've been talking, well, all of the topics have been a little bit too rich for one episode. And so I just wanted to wet your whistle a little bit, but definitely stay tuned for part 2 in October. As we move to close, what I would like to invite you ladies to do is I shared, in fact, I'm going to pull it. I never pull my phone out on camera, but I want to share something with you that I posted earlier, which is going to prompt the next thing I'm going to ask you to do. So what I posted on Facebook was 40% of LGBTQ youth, according to the Trevor Project's 2020 youth survey. 40% of LGBTQ youth considered suicide in the last 12 months. 68% of the study suffered from generalized anxiety disorder. 48% of the LGBTQ youth engaged in self-harm. And it was a crazy number, like 12% had said that they had undergone some sort of conversion therapy before the age of 18.
Mm.
With that in mind, what do you say to the young lesbian that's watching you right now that is saying, wow, you can be a lesbian and be like Heidi and beat the struggles that you've gone through in life? Or you can be like Shy and be a masculine identifying lesbian and be successful and happy. Or you can be like Jen and have, thought you were bisexual and you had kids and now you realize your purpose and is running for Congress. What do you say to that young person that is looking to you literally for a piece of their story to be a part of their survival guide? And I want to start with Heidi.
I say be you. Give everybody the time they need. I think that's sometimes where I know myself and many people made the mistake. They just wanted acceptance right then. You got to kind of let it resonate. And if not, you be you and you go find your family within the community and people that are going to love you unconditionally and never turn their back on you and be there for you, whether you are lesbian, you are white, you are black, you are straight, you are transgender. It does not matter. You be who you are no matter what it is. And you be proud of it.
That's awesome. Heidi, I just want to thank you again so much for being part of this. I look forward to welcoming you back to part 2
Thank you, Norm.
in October. Shy, what you got? What are you saying to that young stud that's in Chicago that's looking and being like, I can't be myself. How did Shy do it? How was it even a possibility?
The first thing is you got to surround yourself with an amazing support system. People who push you and encourage you and accept you for who you are. And you kind of got to cut ties with anyone who's going to hold you back, whether it be family, friends, even work colleagues, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing is, yes, be you and do you. And I do it, and I don't care what anyone has to say, except for the people who made me, and and God. Other than that, all you have is opinions for me. Some are probably unsolicited. So I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do regardless. And not only that, I'm gonna be the best at it, because when people look at me, they expect me to be a certain way, and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna blow everyone's mind. I'm gonna blow it out the water. I'm not gonna just be me. I'm gonna be the best me. And that's what I would encourage them to do.
I think you just gave me a webinar topic.
I know, like
I'm literally writing it down because I'll pay you later.
Okay. Hey, we'll work
Well,
it out.
thank you so much, Shy, for being there, or for being here. Again, like I said, Shy is the owner of Hungry Hustle. As you can see, her girlfriend behind her has set up all of her Juicy Beauty Bundle lashes. And we're thankful that, she was a sponsor today as well. And so, I know that there's someone out there that needed to hear your story, or this portion of your story tonight. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
All right, Miss Jen, I'm closing it out with you. What do you say to that young person that is like, I don't know how she did it. I don't know how is it even possible to be myself? I want to give up.
So before I tell you what I would tell that person, I want to touch briefly on those statistics that you just mentioned. What those statistics tell me is that we in the LGBT community who are in a position to help those that are younger than us, we're not doing enough. If those are what the numbers are reflecting, we're not doing enough. So in order for our places like the center and things like that are doing the community outreach, that are helping these young people in crisis, we need to donate to them so that we can give them the resources to go out in the community, to touch these kids, to let them know that, in the words of the Trevor Project, it gets better. So whether that's the center here, whether that's Pride, whether that's Henderson Equality Center, whether that's the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, which does a lot with LGBT homeless youth, we need to go in and volunteer. We need to donate so that they have the resources to be able to get those statistics lower, because that's unacceptable to me, first of all. We're not doing that. Secondly, it's really cliche, and I feel like the phrase has been overused. It gets better. And once we start to overuse a phrase, the impact lessens. And I think this is one of these cases. So what we need to do is really start to open our eyes and our hearts and have one-on-one conversations with this younger generation that's coming up, because we all have a story. We all have something in common with someone who is struggling. Get to know that person, mentor them. Mentorship is invaluable. When someone can see that you have been successful and you're being honest with the trials and tribulations that you've gone through, and you try to tell your story to these people in a way that it resonates, you give people hope. And that's really what it's about. Mentorship gives people hope. Mentorship doesn't cost a thing. So be an example. Let them know specific examples of some of the trials that you've gone through, coping mechanisms that you've utilized to get through those things, and stay in contact, because we do a terrible job of staying in contact with people that we know are in crisis. It's easy to just pretend like you're checking in on someone and drop the ball then and there and pretend like everything's okay. We've got to follow up with these kids. We've got to act in a mentorship capacity so that we can show them what it's like when it actually does get better.
Honey, did you hear the word? What you said is mentorship gives hope.
Mentorship gives hope.
And y'all know I am big. I've been posted today so many times about sharing your story, and understand that any one of my guests are available to you. So if one of my guests tonight, their stories resonated with you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite each of my guests to post their own contact information in the comments after this goes live. Reach out to them. You can email me at norman@overthetopliving.com, and I can connect you. Understand that we are here. The whole purpose of this platform of What's the LGBT is to provide resource, to provide connection. So if there's something that you say, wow, Jen, your story resonated with me, reach out to me, and I'm happy to do that connection, because as I always say, your story is a part in someone else's survival guide. So again, I want to thank my special guest, Chi-Town, Heidi Burgener, Jen Eason. Again, make sure you're looking out for her in 2022.
I'm coming back.
She's coming to that
Go, girl. Let's
congressional
team up.
seat.
Let's mentor some girls. We can do it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that this show tonight is going to be the catalyst for Heidi, my mom says happy Dog's Day.
I know, look at these two. They won't leave me alone for a second. I just asked them for an hour and a half of my day.
So I just want to thank you guys, you ladies again, for being a part of my show. We started something very, very good here, and I want to invite you to share this. Share it. If you hated it, share it 5 times.
I have to watch it first.
Yeah, after you watch it first, then share it 5 times. But I want to thank my special guest. Again, I want to thank our sponsor tonight, which is Lashes by Juicy Beauty Bundles. And again, I also want to thank our LGBTQ artist spotlight, which is Todd Kane. Again, there is still time to join our book club. We're discussing parts 1 and 2 tomorrow. If you are interested, shoot me a direct message. I'll send you the Amazon link and we will get you into the private group. Friends, I tell you this every day. You're the shit. You got to get up and act like it. You already know who it is. Oh, there's Balmain. You already know who it is. It's your best friend, your good Judy, your next door neighbor, your niece, your cousin, your nephew. And recently, I've been promoted to great auntie. My name is Norman J. Liverpool IV, and I want to thank you for tuning into another edition of What's the LGBT? Take care, my friends.
Thank you.